Alright, TikTokers, Kia Boys Challenge, here we go. Where do I stick this thing? Whoa, damn, that's some futuristic shit right there. Somebody must have had this mom van on Pimp My Ride or something. God, where's the ignition?
Impulse engines activated.
Finally! I don't think this was a Kia. Not like anyone's ever going to hear these, but I think I got launched into space in this vehicle. I think I've left the solar system, and I've taken a few days to cope with that so I could start figuring out a way home. I've looked around. There's not much here. Some bunks. Oh my god, there's a fucking magic sink. I was dying of thirst, and I couldn't get it to work. So I screamed at it to give me water, and water appeared. Out of nowhere. Mind-blowing shit. There's also this chair and this console. That's where I found the log command folder to record these. It's also where I found a lot of files on the company that built this, called Starfleet. Never heard of them, and I think this is some kind of flying car prototype. And that's it. So obviously, I need to figure out this console to find the radio. I was looking for the manual to this thing when I found the files, and, well, I was bored. So I watched the first mission of some spaceship called the USS Enterprise, while under the command of some French dude. Honestly, I don't know why the French have to put so much lore into everything. It's just a hover car. But it was an entertaining story, and just humoring the creators, let's take the mission as fact and break it down. Not like I'm going anywhere. So I present to no one, encounter at Farpoint. The file starts with a voyage through the stars as some guy starts talking about space and frontiers and shit. Then we see what I'm assuming is the Enterprise, zipping around back and forth while displaying the names of the people the hovercar company's marketing department hired to film this stuff. For some reason. The music is epic, though. The ship drops into frame, and we cut to some old guy standing in the dark by himself, just waiting for his cue to step into the half-light by a window. The old guy says he's the captain, and in his log he says something about Deneb 4 and the great unexplored galaxy beyond. He waxes poetic before admitting his assignment has nothing to do with anything beyond, and he's actually here to check out a starbase the Denebians constructed. He gets all mushy about his ship and his new command as he walks through engineering and to the bridge, giving us a mini tour of the ship. He sits in his command chair and starts expositing with his bridge crew, including, but not limited to, a sentient android and an empath. The captain calls the android Data and tells him the orders are to negotiate Starfleet use of the base while surreptitiously discovering the purpose of its construction. The captain specifically uses the word snoop, to which we halt the episode for an unfunny and slightly awkward gag of this incredibly programmed android not knowing the word snoop, and everyone laughing at the incredulousness. The empath then starts trying to act, and makes this childish scared face that she'll use whenever she feels a powerful mind or something along those lines. In front of them, a kind of energy grid-like net forms and blocks them with a powerful force field. The alarms are blaring, and the captain screams for them to cut that damn noise and go to yellow alert. The guy in the back, with the odd growth on his head, says he raised shields. The music is tense. It's all very exciting, like this insert of the empath looking at her hands. Suddenly, God appears, in what appears to be Renaissance-era garb. He tells the captain in ye old English that he needs to bust a U and go back to his side, immediately. The captain says that was quite a directive, and asks God who he is. God says they call themselves the Q. Q then freezes the random ship driver when the guy pulls a key fob on Q. The captain says the key fob was set to stun, so I take it that was actually a weapon. Q tells the captain to go back again, and we fade to black. When we come back, Q has changed outfits to a Cold War-era military officer. He is making a point to the captain about the barbarism of man, and again changes outfits, now into something resembling Gen Z fashion. The big guy with the Snickers head wants to kick Q's ass, and the blonde woman calls him Worf before saying, "Yeah, let me do it, I'm chief of security," and the captain calls her Lieutenant Yar. The captain says no, but only after establishing her name and rank in the most inhuman way. The captain tells Q that he's being a judgy little bitch, and Q says, "Oh, great idea, be back later." Worf and Yar say, "We gotta fight," and the empath says, "Nah, we should run." The captain says, "I bet we can outrun God," and they make preparations to pin the pedal and split the ship at speed. They take off, and the grid folds into a sphere and follows. They gun the engines past the red, but only hit warp 9.5, while the hostile is hitting 9.9. The captain orders the saucer section separated and orders Worf to command it. Worf says he's a Klingon and won't abandon his captain, but his captain reminds him he's been ordered. I guess that explains his head. People go to their new stations, and the captain takes Data, Yar, and the empath to the battle bridge. People in the heart of the ship are shown preparing for the maneuver, and nice dress, guy. They fire a bunch of torpedoes and separate their ship to send most of the crew and their families away. But I think it was to show off the cool new separation feature of the boat. That epic theme strikes up and fits with the exterior ship shots, but not at all with the actors' faces, showing a mixture of anxiety and awe. The saucer heads on, and the body busts a U to head off the hostile. Yar gets impetuous, and the captain immediately puts her in her place. This guy isn't nice. He's dickishly blunt, and I love it. Truth hurts. Now sit down and shut up until you have a better idea of how to deal with God than try and hit it. The captain stands and tells the empath to broadcast their surrender. The grid surrounds the ship, causing 4 of the 5 still aboard to be transported to some insane dystopian court. I bet that Irish guy with like 2 lines is there alone right now, like, I'm the captain now. Shang Tsung comes out and tells them to stand, and the captain has everyone remain seated. The empath tells them that though this is from the past, the threat is very real as a drugged soldier fires wantonly into the ceiling. Hope no one was upstairs using the loo. Q floats in on a hover throne in full sci-fi judge drip. The soldier playing bailiff tells them to stand and fires his gun into the air and ground. Yar seethes and beats him up while he does nothing to defend himself. He's then gunned down by his twin brother as Q says no one shall harm the prisoners until they're proven guilty. But Home Dude never touched her. She's got rage issues. The bloodthirsty savages filling the court hoop and holler about all of this. The captain asks if the trial will be fair, and Q agrees. The crew have to defend themselves against the sins of their forefathers, and Data tries to lawyer out of it, but Q nixes his Earth law authority. Yar then screeches and wails about how she must speak against people like this court and stand up for the people who saved her. It's very cringe. Q then does us a favor and puts Yar on ice. Literally. The captain protests, while the frozen girl tries not to move in the background, and fails. The captain argues, and Q unfreezes Yar, to the chagrin of the court, and myself. When presented with a tablet with the charges against them, the captain refutes them, and the court roars. Q screams they're out of order, and 2 drug soldiers aim at Data and the empath. Q tells the soldiers to press their triggers if the captain answers with anything other than guilty. With his hand forced, the captain pleads guilty, provisionally. The captain breaks down and confesses his species has been barbaric in the past, but demands a test to prove their benevolent nature and growth. Q decides to allow the criminals to be tested and adjourns the court. Q believes in his omnipotence that allowing the crew to continue their current mission will be an excellent test of character, but warns the captain that he may not be prepared for what lies ahead. The crew are transported back to the battle bridge, and the Irish guy acts like nothing happened. We then cut to some other guy named Commander William Riker. A ship called the Hood dropped him off at Farpoint Station to meet up with the Enterprise and join on as its new first officer. In the meantime, he meets up with the Farpoint administrator. After formalities, Riker immediately grills the guy on how they got the energy and resources to build the station so quickly and with so many human comforts. The admin waves his hand about geothermal surplus and offers a fruit bowl to distract Riker. Riker laments the lack of apples, and the admin apologizes, but Riker looks over again, and there's now a bowl of apples on the desk as well. The admin plays it off, and Riker calls him Groppler Zorn, while saying he could swear that it wasn't there. Zorn asks if his failure to notice it made it unwelcome, and then tried to softball that as an analogy for Starfleet's acceptance of the station. Riker takes his apple and leave. Afterwards, Zorn chides the station itself for the magic trick, saying if it arises suspicion, they'll have to punish it. We catch up with Riker in a market-type area of the station when he runs into a woman and her son that Riker calls Wes. Wes knows Riker's name and rank, calls him sir, and is way too excited. Basically a military-obsessed teenager with no friends and undiagnosed ADHD. Riker proposes a walk together, and the woman says she was about to go shopping. Wesley proceeds to embarrass his mom, and Riker reveals that she's a doctor. While she's checking out fabrics, Riker tries to tell her that there's something sus about this place, and she blows him off as a hotshot new officer with a fire up his ass. She also remarks how a red fabric would be better suited with gold trim in it, and when she turned her attention back from Riker to the fabric, it had gold thread all over it. Riker points out that this is exactly what he's talking about, and the doctor agrees. The doctor then exposits her name is Dr. Crusher, and the captain's name is Jean-Luc Picard. In fact, she not only knows his name, she knows him. Picard served with her dead husband, and brought Wesley's father's body home to them when Wesley was just a kid. The doctor and her brat leave, and Reading Rainbow with a banana clip on his face stands behind Riker, talking to him full clip with no primer. Visor Boy is Lieutenant LaForge and reports that the Enterprise is arriving, but without the saucer section. Picard wants Riker to beam up immediately. Riker hits his Bluetooth chest clip and asks for the Enterprise to beam him up, and the guy disintegrates. But it's cool, because he just teleports onto the ship. When Riker gets to the battle bridge, Picard essentially ignores him. Oh yeah, welcome aboard. This guy is so cold, so badass, so patent. They show Riker up previously on to catch him up. Then Picard continues being a strict dick by making Riker dock the ship and saucer manually, even though there's absolutely less than zero reason to do so. He could accidentally fuck up by less than half a degree, rip a hole in the saucer section, and kill all those little kids I saw in there earlier. Rip. But he doesn't. He nails it, because Riker is a space G, something he'll never let you forget. Picard learns Riker overruled a captain's orders to protect the captain from a dangerous situation, and Picard jokes that he hopes Riker can save him from making an ass of himself with the kids, because he hates them. We then cut to Dr. Crusher examining LaForge's eyes, the expo dump on the visor, and LaForge himself, such as he's been blind his whole life and in pain using the visor to see, but surgery and painkillers would reduce the effectiveness, so he refuses. Cutting again, now back to Riker as he steps foot on the main bridge for the first time. Riker wants to find Data, and Worf tells him he's escorting an admiral who required a special shuttle transport. We then cut to some old guy, hooting about not wanting his atoms ripped apart and shot through space. And this man makes sense right here. After some sentimental rubbish, Q pops back in to add an arbitrary ticking clock, as if an immortal can't wait more than a day. Far more important than that is when Riker runs into the empath, who Picard introduces as Counselor Deanna Troi. She immediately starts telepathically communicating with Riker. You remember me, Imzadi? Can you still sense my thoughts? Oh, here we go. We got the tense X drama here. In his head, she tells him she could never let go. I bet this provides so much exciting romantic conflict in this show, and that she talks in everybody's heads. I bet Picard also stays a strict, cold-shoulder military type who hates kids also. But why the fuck is Yar the security? What the fuck?
You are being hailed.
Well, that's great. We can ask them to help us. Answer it.
This is Captain Romeo Bravo of the USS New Orleans. To the entity in the stolen shuttlecraft, please identify.
Sure. This is Matthew Silas Sedgwick. I'm so glad you're here. This is all a huge misunderstanding. I've got your van right here. I didn't touch anything. I was just looking for the bathroom.
Prepare for tractor beam. We'll pull you aboard and have security waiting to escort you to the brig.
Wait, what? I mean, is that necessary? How about you guys get your van back and just drop me back off at Earth and we call it good?
By Subchapter 2, 807, Article 7 of the Starfleet Interstellar Provisions, you shall be remanded into custody for grand theft spacecraft.
Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that. Well, I've only learned one trick from watching Picard, so... Computer! Warp 9.4.
This shuttlecraft is only capable of Warp 5.
Warp 5 then! Punch it!
That's Star Wars.
I think we lost them. Anyway, Picard, Riker, and Troi are down with Groppler Zorn. Picard wants to know more about the station for his report to Starfleet, and Zorn queries the presence of the Betazoid, asking if she's there to read his thoughts. Troi says she's half Betazoid, and her father was a Starfleet officer, which could mean anything as I've seen, but I think she meant human. As a half Freakazoid, she says she can only sense emotions, and project her thoughts to her closest lover, I'm assuming. I'm also assuming from all this that full-blooded betas are telepathic. Picard doesn't care much about the station itself, but is far more interested in the Bandi sharing their construction methods for making similar stations elsewhere. Zorn says the Bandi have no interest in constructing more, and don't like to leave their home world to offer tradesmen to share methods. Zorn threatens to take the Alliance to the Ferengi, and Troi just starts freaking out. She acts like she's about to cry and just starts saying, pain, loneliness, despair. She says it's not a Bandi she's feeling, but something very near them. Zorn feigns ignorance and indignance. After Zorn loses his temper, Picard takes his leave. We then cut to an ensign showing Riker how to use the wall terminals as a directional service and to find people. I'm sure that this device we've gone out of our way to set up will be highlighted in its use many times over the series. It even directs him to a place called the holodeck and says that's your hatch right there, but then asks if he wants to enter after telling him to go in it. The door opens, revealing a forest they keep on board. Riker enters and finds Data attempting to whistle, which Riker mockingly achieves with no effort. This room is huge. There's birds and sky and creeks. Data is mesmerized with the most inane aspects of humanity, but it makes sense, as those little details were the ones overlooked in his programming. He desires to become human, and Riker likens him to Pinocchio. Data reveals that everything in there is a semi-real simulation. The holodeck isn't just shooting light images, though. It's using energy-to-matter replication to essentially make everything in there. And that's fucking awesome. So you can fuck your porn instead of just watching it. Oh yeah, Wesley enters and falls into the creek, having Data lift him out and overhead with one hand and no effort. They all exit the holodeck in front of Picard, who looks pissed at Wesley dripping on his deck. I thought those were light beams. Still with Wesley, as he annoys his mom, he complains about Picard and badgers his mom into letting him see the bridge. We then cut to the crew in the mall area of Farpoint Station when Riker sends Troy, Yar, and LaForge to investigate passages that they detected to the underside of the station. Riker takes Data to investigate topside, and the groups separate. There's an extra in the background who's just wandering lost, just looking at the director and waiting for them to call cut. Down below, the B team slowly walk. Riveting stuff. Back with Riker, while he also pads the time with Data saying a lot of nothing. The B team radio Riker and say they're below, and LaForge says his visor is scanning it every way it can, and none of it is familiar. Troy says she's out. That last empathy attack was too painful. This girl sure is a whole lot of useless. Riker makes her suck at acting to cry again while she winces and says, pain, over and over. She says she feels a life form that's nothing like them, and LaForge says the materials of the station are nothing he's even seen. We then cut to Wesley appearing on the bridge, and Picard saying, "What the hell? Children are not allowed on the bridge." Then Dr. Crusher steps out and says her son isn't on the bridge. He merely accompanied her on the turbo lift. Cool name for an elevator. Picard is shook learning this is Crusher's son, and the grown version of the tiny boy he delivered his dead father to years ago. Picard softens and says, "I knew your father, Wesley. Have a look around. But don't touch anything." The bridge crew all stare at this kid like they don't have jobs, and Picard offers the boy his chair. Try it out. Picard tries to explain the ins and outs of the bridge, but Wesley keeps interrupting him as he already knows everything. At a certain point, Picard gets irate and says, "How the hell do you know that, boy?" But there's a perimeter alert, and they usher out the doctor and her kid. Picard asks if the ship could be the Hood returning, but Worf says it doesn't match any ship spec they know of. Picard says, "On screen," and they view the vessel approaching in space on a giant screen in front of them. Picard has shields raised and phasers readied. That seems like a mouthful when danger pops up quickly. Seems like it'd be better to shorten that to like 2 words. Oh well. The strange ship is huge, about 12 times larger than the Enterprise, and Zorn swears he knows nothing about it, and it's not the Ferengi. The vessel scans the Enterprise, and we cut to the crew on the station. Troy still feels pain. There's something blocking their signals also, so they decide to head for the surface. Back with Picard, and Worf says the vessel is not answering hails before the strange craft starts firing on the old Bandy city. Back underneath the station and city, Riker tells the B team to beam back to the ship, and he and Data go to check out the chaos. Troy has a weak and unprofessional moment of desperate emotion. Riker tells her that she has her orders. We cut to Zorn begging the Enterprise for help, and everything blowing up around him. Riker then radios Picard saying he's on the outskirts of the old Bandy town, which is being leveled. Picard tells Riker to kidnap Zorn and bring him to the Enterprise. That has to be abduction. Unlawful extradition, at least. Picard then tells Yar to lock phasers on the ship firing at the Bandy, and Q appears, tisking. Typical savage life forms never follow even their own rules. Picard and Q pass heated barbs, and Picard tries to maneuver his ship between the attacking craft and the Bandy home world. Worf relays the controls are all gone, before we cut to Data and Riker finding Groppler Zorn begging for help. Zorn is then transported away by someone, or something not the Enterprise or Q. Back on the bridge, Troy says she's feeling satisfaction now, and feeling 2 powerful sources, not just one. Picard keeps telling Q to leave, without realizing Q is basically feeding him the answers. Riker's headstrong but noble confidence impresses Q though, and Riker agrees to beam aboard the attacking vessel. We then pause this attack to let Picard apologize to Dr. Crusher for his behavior on the bridge. After that candy coating though, he immediately suggests her transferring. She tells him to fuck off, and he does, getting the message. After that was over, we see Riker, Data, Troy, and Yar beaming aboard the other ship to find it looking exactly like the construction of Farpoint's underground. Data points out there's no equipment or sound of power. Yar questions how the ship even runs. Troy says she feels anger and hate from this ship to the Bandy City. They find Zorn being tortured and free him, which causes the ship to react. Troy figures out that she's feeling an alien, but we cut to Picard as Q arrives saying their ticking clock has expired. Q cuts off Picard's ability to communicate with his transporter chief, and Picard's ability to beam his crew back over. Q sits in Picard's chair, and Picard keeps his crew at ease before begging Q to let him help his people. Picard says he'll do whatever Q says, and his crew beam over to the bridge with Zorn. But it wasn't Q. Troy and Riker tell Picard the vessel is alive and sent them back. Q goads Picard into attacking it, but in a mocking tone that's meant more to make a point than to actually persuade. Picard gets Zorn to admit the station was actually an injured space creature that they helped. They all of a sudden know everything about the animal, including that it can convert energy to matter, like their replicators. What's a replicator? The ship in front of them transforms into a giant space jellyfish, and the Enterprise fires a beam of energy at Farpoint Station to feed the jelly's counterpart. After messaging for evacuation, of course. I see now it was too simple of a puzzle. Q smiles, almost like a proud dad. Generosity always has been my weakness. Picard gives the space jelly all the energy it can absorb, and now not being held at starvation levels, has the energy to transform back into itself and join its mate in the heavens. Zorn begs for mercy, but Picard is pissed. This won't look good on his Starfleet report. Troy lets us all know they're feeling great joy and gratitude. Twice. She's very annoying, isn't she? Q leaves, saying he'll be back. We then cut to the bridge crew, as Picard says he's arranged for Farpoint to be rebuilt properly, and then tells Riker their future adventures should prove much more interesting. Not a very good endorsement of your pilot, buddy. Picard says, let's see what's out there. Engage. And the ship goes into what I'm assuming is warp, before we get the credits. Real time. As the successor to the legendary original Star Trek series, Star Trek The Next Generation had enormous shoes to fill. With a gap of almost 2 decades since the original series, Gene Roddenberry, the visionary creator of Star Trek, returned to helm The Next Generation. His leadership set the foundational stones for a new era of exploration and philosophical musings. Casting was a crucial element in bringing the new crew of the USS Enterprise D to life. Patrick Stewart, an esteemed stage actor, was cast as Jean-Luc Picard, lending the show a gravitas and eloquence that would become its hallmark. Alongside Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Marina Sirtis, Brent Spiner, Michael Dorn, Denise Crosby, Gates McFadden, and Will Wheaton formed an ensemble that would capture the hearts of fans worldwide. Mostly. Shut up, Wesley. The USS Enterprise D represented the technological leap forward from its predecessor. The ship's sleek design, crafted by Andrew Probert and Rick Sternbach, aimed to capture the essence of exploration while incorporating modern aesthetics. The iconic saucer section, separated from the secondary hull, would become synonymous with the Next Generation's distinctive visual identity. Encounter at Farpoint introduced a captivating storyline revolving around a trial of humanity's worthiness, orchestrated by the enigmatic Q, immortalized by John Delancey. The narrative allowed TNG to explore ethical dilemmas, diplomacy, and the quest for knowledge. With Roddenberry's guidance, the episode established the series' core values: unity, compassion, and intellectual curiosity. As with any ambitious undertaking, The Next Generation faced numerous production challenges during the creation of the pilot. Limited budgets and technological constraints pushed the creative team to innovate. Imaginative use of practical effects combined with the then emerging world of computer-generated imagery, or CGI, set the new standard for television science fiction. When it aired on September 28, 1987, fans and critics eagerly weighed in on The Next Generation's inaugural voyage. While some die-hard fans were initially skeptical of the new series, the episode received generally positive reviews, praising the strong performances, intriguing plot lines, and philosophical depth. Viewers quickly embraced the new crew, ensuring the show's long-lasting success. The Next Generation would become a cultural phenomenon in its own right. It spawned spin-off series, feature films, and a lasting legacy within the Star Trek franchise. The show's ability to tackle profound themes while inspiring a sense of wonder and hope resonated with audiences around the world. Through the dedication of its cast and crew, the show transcended its predecessor and became a timeless piece of science fiction television. The enduring appeal of TNG lies not only in its thrilling space exploration, but also in its exploration of the human condition, forging a bond between fans and the crew of the Enterprise that will continue to live long and prosper. I genuinely love this pilot and do see the issues, but don't see the major complaints about the dreaded first season. Yet.
You are being hailed.
Oh, well, that's probably not good. Oh, hey, computer, check out what I learned on screen.
To the human male who identified himself as Matthew Silas Sedgwick, this is Admiral Pachev of the United Federation of Planets. You are under arrest. I command you to power down your engines immediately.
Yeah, no, computer, punch it.
Pursuing ship gaining.
Full reverse. Turn in any random spherical direction in warp 5 now.
Put out a bolo for a Type 6 shuttlecraft from the USS New Orleans, bearing the name Thea, and issue a manhunt advisory to Starfleet headquarters for our joyrider, Mr. Sedgwick.